Good morning. Welcome to the First Universalist Unitarian Church. My name is Mark Cordes, and I'm a member of this congregation. A very warm welcome to our visitors this morning. We encourage you to join us after the service for coffee in the atrium. There are red mugs reserved for newcomers, although if you don't drink coffee or like the color red, you can raise your hand just a little bit, and I'll speak to you afterwards, and I would like to know what brought you here this morning. Since 1858, UU Wausau has been a leading voice for progressive beliefs within central Wisconsin. We're an intentionally free and inclusive community that welcomes everyone, regardless of age, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or economic status. As you drove or walked here this morning, you probably passed several churches on your way in. Many churches and their corresponding creeds are like a fishbowl. They're confined within a specific area or system of predetermined beliefs. So what makes this church different or unique? Well, we aren't the fishbowl. We strive to encompass the entire ocean of spiritual beliefs, or in some cases, non-belief. So wherever you may be on life's journey, you not only belong here, you're fully accepted. Welcome home. Between Sundays, we invite you to participate in our events and classes during the week. Be sure to subscribe to the church's newsletter, the Circuit Writer, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram for updates. There are a few announcements they've asked me to share. There is a blood drive coming up, and that's going to be on Tuesday the 28th here at the UU Church. And as a bonus, anyone who donates blood will get a $15 certificate to the merchant of their choice. To volunteer or donate blood, please contact the church office. There's going to be a community potluck next Sunday, February 2nd, after church. In the dining room, it is hosted by the Caring Committee. Please bring a salad, side dish, or dessert to share. Whether you bring a dish or not, simply come with an open heart. All are welcome to participate in this inclusive gathering. Save the date, there's a board listening session. Our next Board of Trustees listening session will be held on Sunday, March 2nd after the service as part of March's community potluck. This is an opportunity to share your thoughts, concerns, and feedback with the board in an open setting. We encourage you to participate and have your voice heard. There's a Finding Common Ground Conflict Transformation two-part series that will also be held on February 9th and 16th. Those are both Sundays after the service, from 11:30 to 2 p.m. in case you think over the next couple of years there may be some conflict or difficult conversations you might need to have. Before we begin the worship service, there are two quotes I'd like to share from Martin Luther King, Jr., as it was a national holiday on Monday in honor of him. As well, for those who didn't notice, we also inaugurated our 47th president. I thought these two short quotes would be very fitting as we reflect on both of these events this week. Dr. King reminded us, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And finally he said, let no man pull you so low as to hate him. I hope you find these as comforting as I did. As we begin our worship, let's take a moment to extend peace and blessings to one another. Please rise and greet your neighbors. Handshakes, high fives, and hugs are completely acceptable. Now, dear friends, let us gather our hearts and minds for worship. please join me in reciting the chalice lighting found in your order of service, and please note that the congregation will recite the sections in bold together. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn in the gray hymnal, number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. The offering we take each Sunday isn't just out of habit. Oh.
You skipped the story.
I skipped that?
You skipped the story.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We're really excited to take the
Yes.
offering this morning.
Really excited, so double down.
So this is not the offering. Instead, I think we've all heard those stories about people who have hidden away their life savings in their mattresses or hidden into the walls of their home, and this is an imagined story just like that. Once upon a time, there was an old man who had a special treasure, gold. He couldn't decide what to spend his gold on, so instead, he kept saving it until eventually he collected a tidy little sum. He didn't trust it at a bank, and he didn't trust it inside his house just in case someone might stumble upon it. So he gathered up all his gold and put it in a small chest and buried it in his backyard. The old man would spend his days in his backyard watching over his treasure and telling himself all the ways he could spend his money. He could take a trip to the tropics, which seems very nice this morning, but no. He'd buy a fancy car, no. He'd buy a house, no. He'd buy himself a life-size robotic Lego version of himself to do all his chores, no. And this is how it went day after day, until one day a thief was walking by the old man's house, and he overheard the old man in his backyard arguing with himself about all the things he could buy with his gold, but how he'd have to keep it safe in the backyard until then. So later that night, the thief came back and dug up the old man's chest and made off with all his gold. And the next day, when the man saw his gold was gone, he was heartbroken. He yelled and cursed the heavens, and he saw his neighbor was outside and called her over and asked if she had seen anything, and she didn't. And the old man began bemoaning his terrible luck and all the things he could have done with that gold. His neighbor looked at the hole while the old man's list got longer and longer, and finally, when he stopped, the neighbor said, "Well, you could just bury a rock in the hole." The old man was flummoxed. "How ridiculous," he countered. "How could a rock be anywhere near the value of his gold?" And the neighbor explained that he never used his gold, so a rock buried in the hole would do him and everyone else the same amount as good as gold buried in the hole. After his neighbor left, the old man stayed in his yard, staring at the hole and pondering what she had said. Deep down, he knew she was right. It might as well have been a rock. He never used his gold for himself, and he had certainly never used it for anyone else. He could have spent his gold on so many things: a car, a house, a personal on-demand iced coffee machine, but also on his neighbors and his community. He could have funded school lunches or built housing. He could have done so much good with his gift. And isn't that what we all do with our gifts sometimes? Hide them away because we think they're as useless as a rock, or can't figure out how we might use them, or get overwhelmed with the state of the world and how our gifts might be able to help. Now, I don't know if the man ever got his gold back, but I would like to think that, like us, he went on and shared his gifts instead of letting them sit hidden in the ground. And that is our story for today. Children in preschool through 5th grade are invited downstairs for RE, and whether you're remaining in the sanctuary or heading off downstairs, I invite you to bless each other with our children's song. The words are printed in your order of service.
Please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Softly close your eyes and take a moment to notice your body. See if you can make yourself 10% more comfortable. Release any tension you may be holding. Feel your feet pressing down toward the earth and the top of your head reaching up to the sky. The ground beneath our feet connects us to this building, to the earth, to the rock and magma and teeming life which dwells below. And as our heads reach up towards the sky, they stretch toward transcendence, toward starlight, and toward mystery. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, these are difficult times. Be with us when we are not okay, when we are weary and afraid. Accompany us as we move through all our emotions: despair, courage, hope. May we ground always in our own worthiness. Spirit of life, you accompany us this day and always. Help us turn towards integrity and love. At this time in particular, may we center the needs of those impacted by oppression, especially racism, cis-sexism, heterosexism, and immigration status. Spirit of life, lead us to justice and to beloved community. To these words, you are invited now to add your own silent prayers and intentions. May it be so, and blessed be. Please remain seated for hymn number 168, One More Step.
I apologize, I was a little early on the offering. This is my first time doing this, and Sarah Thurs, who asked me to do this, she assured me there'd be no hazing, so that's the only reason I took this role. The offering that we take each Sunday isn't out of habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place in our community. The offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value personally, as well as the purpose of this congregation within central Wisconsin. With these gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. The mission and ministry of UU Wausau is made possible by the generous support of you, its friends and members. You can place a gift in the donation plate as it passes by, or you can also visit our website, uuwausau.org, to make a one-time or recurring gift with your credit or debit card. And people at home, you can do that right now if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you for your ongoing support and commitment to this church and its purpose.
Today's reading is by the UU theologian Rebecca Ann Parker. It's a little bit longer than some of our readings. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, and waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting, that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and for this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude, to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavors shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world, but together, that is another possibility waiting. Last May, I was on a personal retreat at the St. Anthony Retreat and Spirituality Center in Marathon, Wisconsin. I was there when a tornado swept through. St. Anthony is a former monastery for Capuchin Franciscan monks or Catholic monks following the example of St. Francis. The monastery was built in 1918. I returned after a long walk to my little room where I hoped to center and do art in silence. And instead, the sky turned green and I was ushered into the basement with about 10 other staff and retreat center guests. The basement was cold and poorly lit. There were a lot of hallways and abandoned rooms. I watched storm coverage in the custodian's repair shop while sending text messages to my mom and brother who were impacted by tornadoes across several states. One staff member asked if anyone wanted to go to the, quote, real tornado shelter, and I looked at the windows and the saws laying on benches all around me, and I said, yes, I want to go to the real tornado shelter. So we walked past rooms which were long abandoned, an old bakery, an old cobblery, a barber shop, a room that was huge that used to be filled to the top with coal, and even a partially constructed bowling alley. I hadn't thought about monks at a monastery needing to make shoes or cut each other's hair or shovel coal or go bowling together, but these gifts and skills were important for the functioning of the whole community, including a little time for fun. I was taken into a large unlit space with no windows by safes where financial pledges used to be held. And as I waited there for the tornado, which eventually passed, I learned something interesting about the old monastery's foundation. I could see the foundation up close as the stone wall which protected me from the storm. Those who wanted to build a monastery in Marathon in 1918 could help in two ways. The first way was to give money to the project. And the second way people could help is they could bring stones from their yard to help build the foundation. The monastery's foundation was built from stones dug up from the ground and carried by neighbors. The tornado passed. I'm grateful my family and friends were unharmed, and the retreat center was not impacted by the storm. So I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot of anxiety in the air this week. It's overwhelming to be alive in times like these of political turmoil and climate change. Now is sadly a time of more tornadoes. It's a time of prisoners fighting fires in California. It's a time where hate and fascism feels emboldened. This is a time to support transgender youth. It's a time to remember history and to support all those at the margins. We must make a choice every day to bless the world as we also and at the same time grieve. It can be hard to decide how to meet this moment. And one strategy is to look to community and to particularity. The Black social justice facilitator and doula Adrienne Marie Brown offers a unique approach to movement work in her book, Emergent Strategy. This book is a guide to working with people and groups in a way that aligns with the principles of nature and allows us to move with change. One of the principles in the book really shifted my perspective, and it reads, quote, "There is a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it." On organizing, Brown asks, quote, "Why are we meeting? What can this group uniquely accomplish?" There are always a ton of relevant conversations that could happen, but there is usually a very small set of conversations that this particular group at this particular moment in history can have and move forward given their capacity, resources, time, focus, and beliefs. And they continue, "There is a conversation in this room that can only happen with us." There are many people in many Unitarian Universalist congregations struggling with similar joys and concerns to our own. But there is something about our particularity that can illuminate our specific gifts that we might offer for this time and space. Of course, it matters who is invited to be part of these conversations to begin with, and that includes those who feel like they are welcome to join. I want to offer an example of what might happen when impacted communities aren't included in conversations about how to best help them. In the 1990s, Unitarian Universalist congregations connected with many of the small Unitarian churches in Transylvania, Romania, after the fall of communism. This is the partner church movement. Many of these churches were located in remote rural villages. I had the privilege of visiting one of these villages in 2015 as a pilgrimage leader for my congregation in Seattle and a then board member for the Unitarian Universalist Partner Church Council. About a third of the village of 𝗔𝗯cie were Unitarian Christians. They traced their lineages to the 1500s, when Protestant theologian Francis David proclaimed in Transylvania that God was one and indivisible. These villages were located in rural mountainous regions which offered some protection over the centuries, including during communism and when Transylvania became Romanian instead of Hungarian. The dirt road to 𝗔𝗯cie was bumpy, and it winded past a salt mine. The village was small and dense with houses. At sundown, family cows were led down the main streets of the village to return to each owner's stable. The white Unitarian church sat up on a hill, surrounded by a graveyard housing generations of congregants. And following tradition, women sat on one side of the church and men sat on the other side. It's human nature to think we know best what people impacted by poverty or injustice need, but it's essential to practice trust and to ask the people most impacted what they think they need. When they partnered together in the 90s, many UU congregations in the United States tried to decide what small Unitarian Transylvanian communities needed. This was extremely well-intentioned. And these congregations decided that each village could probably use a tractor so that the villagers could update their farming practices to modernity. But the problem? These communities were just coming out of communism. A collectively owned tractor was extremely anxiety-provoking for the villagers. Most people's gardens were too small to even have a tractor fit in them. And it turns out that these villagers already had extremely sustainable farming practices, much more sustainable than what we practice in the United States. The tractors were not used because they weren't useful to the context of Transylvanian village life. We thought they needed a tractor, but what was really needed was relationship building and communication. We can meet the moment by discerning gifts that we can share individually and collectively. and by making sure we listen to the needs of those most marginalized and most impacted by injustice. But we need to use these gifts for the power of good. As Rebecca Ann Parker writes, your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. She writes that blessing the world isn't an act of will, but surprise at kindness and benevolent rage, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. We are drawn both into solitude and into community in service of this blessing. Examples abound of those who use their gifts to curse the world, to, quote, draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, and withhold love. These come in large and small expressions. A parent using emotional intelligence to shame their child for their gender. Billionaires using skill with investment and influence to hoard wealth. Tech companies harnessing intelligence towards the pursuit of evil. People using privilege and influence to ensure they will always feel safe and abundant, and this is done through fearing and prosecuting immigrants and those at the margins. The harm which comes with the gifts of technology are often obscured. Cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence, or AI, often seem like very amorphous concepts, but they have real physical implications. Cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence require energy and electricity. Has your computer or laptop ever gotten really hot when you're using it? Like this, cryptocurrency and AI run off of physical data centers, which also get really hot, and that requires cooling through water and electricity. According to NPR, Google doubled its greenhouse gas emissions in the last 5 years because they're pursuing AI so fervently. Artificial intelligence is poised to replace paid artists and writers, pushing them out of already precarious jobs. And even worse, this is done through stealing the work of artists found online and then mashing up these images and spitting them out as AI-generated images. The technology can also be a source of misinformation and bias. Sometimes AI reports that Italy is not a country. The use of AI to screen job candidates often reflects the very same racial discrimination that people do in our wider culture. So those are some examples of gifts that can be used to curse the world. And here are some examples of gifts that can be used to bless it. I witnessed a lot of gift giving and gift receiving in my pilgrimage to Transylvania. In fact, I learned very quickly not to praise anything in someone's home or they would try to give it to me. When we arrived in 𝗔𝗯cie my fellow pilgrim Sandy met a Transylvanian couple who ushered her into their stable. They showed her their cow and then fetched a silver cup and a silver platter. They milked the cow right into that cup and then presented it to her on the platter. This was a gift of fellowship, earthy and real like nothing else, presented on one's best silver. And during Sunday worship, I witnessed another gift. One of the pilgrims was a female Unitarian Universalist minister. On Saturday, we sat in the home of the minister of the 𝗔𝗯cie Unitarian Church. He carved up a loaf of fresh-baked bread for communion while we watched cartoons with his children. On Sunday, he served the communion bread on an ancient silver platter with wine from an ancient silver chalice. These were precious heirlooms belonging to the congregation. And row by row, congregants came to take communion from their gender-segregated pews. And at the end of the service, the female UU minister stood before the minister of the 𝗔𝗯cie church, and at his invitation, they served communion to each other. She served him, and he served her. Some gifts to bless the world are unexpected, like milk in a silver cup. In 2020, many UU congregations were able to engage with teens during a time when nobody really wanted to be on more Zoom calls. And how did they do this? By harnessing the power of Dungeons and Dragons players with a gift for role-playing games. A lot of youth groups continued to meet up to play D&D online under the guidance of nerdy youth group advisors. The retired UU minister, Marilyn Sewell, used to recruit readers from her congregation to scour newspapers, magazines, and books for interesting facts and stories that she could weave into her sermons. A man harnessed his gift of emotional intelligence by wearing a shirt labeled "Free Dad Hugs" at a pride parade. I wonder what small and specific gifts each of you can use to bless the world. Someone with a skill for makeup can give manicures at a nursing home. Those with a knack for organization can straighten up a food pantry. And of course, I don't know where we would be without musicians sharing songs for justice. I'm grateful for my brother, Thomas Moberg, who uses his many gifts of art and music to bless the world. And one of these is on your order of service on the cover. Thomas made a series of paintings about milkweed, which he made while standing on roadsides and sidewalks and in fields. The milkweed paintings come from across the Midwest. I find these milkweed paintings to be so poignant. This one, milkweed number 5, emerges from a crack in the sidewalk and it leans against a wall. It breaks my heart that monarch butterflies are dying. And as many know, monarch caterpillars only eat milkweed. Milkweed is poisonous. Monarchs co-evolved with it so they can sustain each other. Monarch caterpillars store poison from the milkweed in their bodies, which offers protection to the butterflies as they journey across vast distances. The milkweed is home, it's food, it's poison, and it's protection. Milkweed is important to other insects and animals as well. Hummingbirds use silk from milkweed pods to line their nest, and milkweed brings beauty and biodiversity as it also brings fierceness. In Song of Myself, Walt Whitman writes, "I believe a leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars, and the running blackberry would adorn the parlors of heaven." The gift of art can remind us of the sacred dimensions of the particular. Milkweed is overlooked. In his painting series, Thomas draws attention to the lowly milkweed and shows the beauty and variation of each of these plants. Particularity is often where love lives. The way a grandmother's laugh lines crease with joy, the texture of a bright oil pastel, one single milkweed plant growing from a crack in a sidewalk in a city. I want to return now to the idea that there's a conversation that only the people in this room can have at this time. There's a practice called congregational asset mapping. It seeks to uncover our gifts and create connections. Often this is done in regard to movement building around justice. And I think that it demonstrates that there are many roles for everyone, regardless of ability level in the work of liberation. Congregational assets include financial resources, staff resources, volunteers, physical buildings, professional connection, and job skills. Here are some of the questions that might be asked in mapping a congregation's assets. What gifts and limitations does our building have, located where it is and with its history? What does it mean to be one of the few voices of progressive religion in our region? What organizations have we partnered with in the past? With whom do we share our dedicated plate collections? How many meals can our kitchen make? How many people in our congregation love to bake? Who can balance a spreadsheet? Who can input data? Who can't wait to march in the streets? Who can de-escalate conflict? Are any of us singers or lawyers or artists? There is a work that only the people in this room can do. This room includes people, life histories, skills, and longings that no other gathering on the planet can replicate. I wonder what conversations between children could only happen now and in our religious education classrooms. I wonder how the work we do is different because we do it as a congregation. I wonder what this congregation uniquely can accomplish. I wonder what gifts are present in this room, ready to be shared to bless the world. And I wonder which of us would carry heavy stones to build a new foundation. May it be so, and blessed be. Please rise now in body or in spirit to join in singing hymn number 331, Life is the Greatest Gift. You're invited to remain standing and to reach out with heart or hand to those around you. Our closing words are by Laurelyn Bellamy. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. And if you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace. Please be seated for our postlude. After the service, all are invited to gather in the atrium for coffee and for fellowship.